तस्मै ओम शांति। संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिपर्यवतिष्ठते नास्ति दुःस्थिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिः अशान्तस्य सुखम् इन्द्रियाणां विचरतां यन्मनोनुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम् वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो गृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः आपूर्यमानम् अचलप्रतिष्ठम् समुद्रमापाप्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत्कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे न शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी विहाय कामान् यः सर्वान् पुमांशरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति ईशां ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति।
What is the description of a self-realized sage? For that question, the answer is fulfillment is the description. How does one understand the self-realized sage? The answer is he is fulfilled. How much ever water enters the ocean still remains. That fulfillment, like the fulfillment experience, like the ocean, he is fulfilled. Unfulfillment, which causes the thoughts to move in various directions, is desires. The unfulfillment creates the thoughts, and the thoughts keep moving in various directions seeking fulfillment. So a person who is already fulfilled, thoughts do not seek any further fulfillment. In that sense he is fulfilled. fulfillment is very difficult to understand for a person who believes in unfulfillment is the driving force for action. For example, for actions to come, you need a basic discontentment. People do not know how to act out of contentment. Actions always necessarily has to spring from a discontentment, a unfulfillment. So, a person who is fundamentally acting out of discontentment is very difficult to understand how actions can come out of fulfillment. For the moment fulfillment happens, the moment contentment comes, the intensity of the action itself, the intensity of the action drops, or maybe no action at all. For all practical purposes, there will not be any action at all the moment contentment comes. Therefore, what drives action, what drives life is a sense of discontentment. A person who is living life with the fundamental force of discontentment cannot understand what is contentment. Now, how to explain that? Unless you give a metaphor, it's not possible. So, the metaphor from the Mundaka Upanishad is taken. What is that? Like an ocean, he is fulfilled. He is like an ocean. Addition, deletion makes no difference. The sun comes and takes away water from the ocean. Rivers dump all their water in the ocean. The addition or deletion doesn't make any difference. That's the ocean. You take away something from it, it still remains full. You add something to it, it still remains full. For the basic difference is fulfillment. A desire-ridden person cannot experience fulfillment. For the very nature of desire is unfulfillment. Again I repeat, a desire-ridden person can never experience fulfillment. For the very nature of desire is unfulfillment. How much ever you fulfill a desire, you cannot experience even partial fulfillment. But I am experiencing fulfillment, no. I am very happy, no. Thank God for that. Some good karma we have done in the past, we are enjoying the punya of it now. That's all. Nothing has happened. There is no qualitative change in the human being. Experiencing the punya of some good action in the past, the person feels everything is fine, alright. Once that is exhausted, next moment, from where it comes, God only knows, but it comes. So, fulfillment and desire, fulfillment through desire is an impossibility. It's against the dharma of desire. The dharma of desire is to be unfulfilled, agitated, frustrated. You can't have a fulfillment, you can never experience fulfillment through desire. It's not possible. Even if 1% of it is possible, we can wind up all this. There is no need for Shastras, scriptures, wise men, enlightenment. It's not. None of them are needed. For we all should have been fulfilled already. We all should have been fulfilled already. Therefore, what is the nature of fulfillment? The nature of fulfillment is not addition and acquisition. The nature of fulfillment is emptiness. That's why the fulfillment experienced through renunciation. The fulfillment not experienced through acquisition. Fulfillment means you acquire, you add more, you add more, you add more. A time will come where you will have enough to say, I am fulfilled. Yeah, that's the general way. I am talking about how people believe what fulfillment is. You go on acquiring. A time will come where you have acquired enough to say, no more. Fulfilled. I am very contented, sir. I am not a very greedy person like others in the world. I am a very contented person. Only thing that is missing in my life is self-realization. So that is another one more medal to be, another one more object to be bought and kept in the cupboard. Only that is missing. Otherwise, I have everything. It's not possible. For the fulfillment is not experienced through addition and acquisition. A fulfillment that is experienced through renunciation. That's why the previous verse he said, night and day. One of the most fabulous verse is that verse number 69. Just one metaphor, that's all. There is no, that metaphor is the very philosophy. Night and day. It's not that when we are all sleeping he is awake, when he is sleeping we are awake. We both sleep at the same time only. But there is a quality. What is the quality? The fulfillment experienced through renunciation. Even when we are awake, we are not awake. Even when he is sleeping, he is still awake. That's the difference. The fulfillment is of totally different quality altogether. Beyond the point, it gets too confusing even to grow. Even when we think we are conscious, we are sleeping. Even when he is sleeping, he is conscious. That's why he says night and day, two contrasting experiences. Now the question that Arjuna is asking is way beyond his ability to understand. That's why people ask questions beyond their capacity to understand. But what makes them to ask this question? Something, some memory, some word, some curiosity. Some curiosity triggers. Arjuna's curiosity is triggered what? Describe a self-realized person. For Arjuna's level, the description of an enlightened man is the man who's got his senses under control. For Arjuna, senses is not under control. So he said, for you Arjuna, understand. Enlightenment means senses under control. But that's not it, complete. It's not just senses under control. He is experiencing a fulfillment. And what is that fulfillment? The fulfillment experienced through giving. It's like saying the joy of sacrifice. Has anyone experienced any joy out of sacrificing? Then what does it mean, joy of sacrifice? There is no. It's contradictory in terms. What is that? The fulfillment. What is the fulfillment? The fulfillment that is experienced through renunciation. What he renounced? Carefully follow. He renounced desires. Desires will not stay without your cooperation. If you stop cooperating, it will vanish. The fact that it is still there means you are cooperating and keeping it alive. Take a simple example. A person gets angry all the time. You ask that person, are you getting angry or is someone making you angry? The person gets angry. The question is, are you getting angry or is someone making you angry? If someone is making you angry, Don't worry. Whatsoever you do, the other person will still keep making you get angry, and you are just a slave in that man's hands. For he is deciding everything for you. No. He decides when you should laugh, he decides when you should cry, he decides when you should get angry. Now who are you? A slave in the hands of? A slave in the hands of the other. Now whoever the other is doesn't matter. But you have ended up becoming a slave. So to that man, the question is asked, are you angry, or is someone making you angry? At the superficial logic, at the superficial layer, the answer is very clear. What? Now summa irna sir. That fellow came and triggered it and went. Therefore, who caused anger? And yet the truth is, you are the one who is getting angry. It has got nothing to do with the other. He has understood life like that, and he has made enough effort and tapas to understand this. Having transcended that, he is experiencing a state of fulfillment. What did he renounce? What did he give up? He gave up desiring. You follow? Always ask this question. Is the world tempting you, or are you getting tempted? If the world is tempting you, now the responsibility is of the world, and you are a helpless victim. If you are getting tempted, you can do something about it. Are you able to follow? But I am staying quiet, sir. See, before that person entered and said that word, I was all right. அது வரைக்கும் நான் சும்மா தான் இருந்தேன். That fellow came and சும்மா உட்காந்து அவர் வந்து சுரஞ்சு விட்டு போயிட்டார் சார். What can I do? That fellow came and unnecessarily scratched me and went. For I am in anger for the next 3 janmas, sir. I don't know whatever it is. You follow? What is fulfillment? A fulfillment that he has attained by a proper understanding of what life is all about. That's the fulfillment that he has experienced, which is impossible for a person who is living life in a different, opposite way to understand. You follow? Impossible to, for in the ordinary sense, how can you act out of contentment? It's impossible. Since this is so much impossible to understand, he comes down to the next layer, comes down to the lower level in the next chapter and says, at least act without the fruit in mind. Since you can't act out of contentment, at least act without the fruit in mind. For that also we'll have the same problem. For that also the same problem. What is the problem? Without the fruit in mind, how can you act? You can't act with contentment. You can't act with no fruit in mind. But what will you want? What will you have? What do you ask? What do you expect? You want contentment? You want fulfillment. How is it possible? That's why he says that desirer of worldly objects can never know peace or happiness. If he has only said, as the waters enters the ocean which filled from all sides remains undisturbed, likewise in whom all objects of enjoyment enter, attains peace. If he had stopped with that, this verse doesn't take that much time at all. But then he adds one word in the end. Na kama kami, not the desirer of objects. He just slipped one word. And that one word, in that one word lies the clue to what perfection is all about. In that one word lies the clue to what fulfillment is all about. If you don't understand the metaphor, for metaphor explains it only from one angle. Metaphor doesn't give a complete picture. It gives one explanation from one angle. what he ended up by saying, nakama kami, not the desirer of objects. Meaning, as long as you are desiring, you will not know what contentment is. You will not know what peace means. For desire has unfulfillment as the root. You can't have fulfillment of desire. That's not possible. Then what is possible? Understanding the true nature of desire is possible. Once you understand the true nature of desire, desiring stops. The moment desiring stops, you experience a fulfillment. Exactly opposite of that is a worldly person's experience. A worldly person doesn't experience any form of fulfillment whatsoever. He doesn't experience. Or by mistake, if he is experiencing any fulfillment, be careful. That's the trap. What is the trap? The trap is, you will start believing that you have come to understood. You will start thinking that now you know. Now you have understood. How do you know that you have not yet understood? Keep asking this question. Am I getting angry, or is someone making me get angry? Am I getting tempted, or is the world tempting? The world is tempting, very simple. Just get out of the world, you should be free. Simply die, everything will become alright. If the world is the cause of it. But impossible to accept this. For an ignorant man believes that, that's why I am giving this example, just as the person who is getting angry always thinks that his anger has enough justifications in the fact that it is being caused by somebody else. If I see anyone working with lack of sincerity, I get very angry, sir. Anger gets very justified. If I see anyone telling lies, I get very. If I see anyone stealing, I get very. Down the line, permanently you will be in anger. You follow? If you are sincere, you are saved. That's all. What has that got to do with the sincerity of the others? Even if you are so concerned about the others, carefully follow. Even if you are genuinely concerned about the other, what you should do? Even if you are genuinely concerned about the other, what you should do? Or what you will do even if you are genuinely concerned? Give him a discourse, lecture, advice. What you will do even if you are genuinely concerned? What will you do? You will live it and show it. What will you do? Suggest. Somehow give advice to others. What will you do? Even if the person who is genuinely concerned will do tapas and rise him to a height where that height is inspiring. You will inspire the other. If you are genuinely concerned about the other, what will you do? You will inspire the other. A person of inspiration need not talk, even his presence is enough. That's why he just lives it, and that living itself is enough inspiration to the other. He need not give lectures, he need not give advice, he need not suggest, he need not do anything. So even if you are genuinely concerned about the other, what you will do? Your question will be how to inspire the other. If you have to inspire the other, you have to be inspired. When you are not inspired, how can you inspire the other one? Number two, if you have to inspire the other, if your words have to have a meaning to the other, if your words has to have an impact on the other should look up to you. They should look up to you. When will the other look up to you? Who is looked upon? The man of service and sacrifice. The man of tapas is looked upon. And whatsoever he says becomes the law, becomes the rule. Na kama kami, not the desirer of objects. But I am getting angry only to help the other, sir. If you have to help the other, getting angry is getting angry and shouting is of no use, because your anger is a joke to the, you know that, no? If someone gets angry and shout, it becomes a joke to the, they will joke about it, they will laugh at it, for the anger has no meaning. Only your BP is shooting. What is the other way? Inspire. How you can inspire? When you live a life of service and sacrifice, when you live a life of tapas, not a life of scholar, not a life of intelligence, not a life of you able to explain it well, not that life. That's why a college professor can explain it much better. But if you have a trouble, you will not go to the college professor for a solution. You will go to a Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. What is the difference? He is able to inspire. And how is he able to inspire? Not by his scholars, not by his words, not by his discourses. How is he able to inspire? He lives a life of service and sacrifice. It's like saying the joy of sacrifice. For us, sacrifice is always a pinch. There's no joy. For us, it's only a pinch of sacrifice. Yeah. After pinching, how can you tell that person? Enjoy that. Yeah. A fulfillment which is totally of a different, and fulfillment which is of a totally different quality by nature. What's the quality? Actions arising out of contentment. A fulfillment experienced not out of acquisitions, not out of fulfillment of a desire, but a fulfillment experienced by giving up desire. Nakama kami means a person who's a victim of desires. What does he experience? Mental disturbances. What are the mental disturbances that the desire-ridden person goes through? He is a victim of joy and sorrow. He becomes a victim of joy and sorrow. It's not only sorrow. He becomes a victim of sorrow. He becomes a victim of joy also. He is like an ocean, he says. The enlightened says, is like a samudra, fulfilled from all sides, filled in from all sides. Give anything to him, it doesn't add up to his fulfillment. Take his life away, it doesn't take away anything from him. Like that person, like that sage told Alexander, no? When Alexander said, if you don't come with me to Greece, I will sever your head and your head will roll on this ground. He said, I also like to see it, for I have never seen my head rolling. Alexander says, first time looking at this man, I got scared. Or if you say, I have never seen my head rolling, cut my head. Now what you can do to that man? At the most, what you will do? You will only run away from him. For what connection you can have with him? What relationship you can have with such a person? A state of fulfillment. All worldly enjoyments to him is like waters of the river to ocean. That's the fulfillment. All worldly enjoyments to him is nothing but the rivers of the water entering the ocean. When it enters the ocean, does it have any impact on the ocean? Literally no impact. Therefore, what do you understand as fulfillment means? A fulfillment which is fundamentally in contrast with all our experiences. So there is no correlation between any experience, any fulfillment that you experience and the fulfillment that he is experiencing. There is no correlation. Maybe that would be slightly better, no sir. That's why the Taittiriya goes on with this description of quantitatively describing the fulfillment. If you eat one ice cream here, you get X amount of happiness. The same ice cream given to you in Naraka, there is no fulfillment at all. In the Bhuloka, in the Karma Bhumi, where action is possible, you have an ice cream. From negative, it comes to 1 unit. In Naraka, it is. In hell, it is no enjoyment. That's hell. All the blissful things are around you. All the joyful things are around you, and you are in misery. That is hell. You follow? Everything around you is full. Everything around you is fine. But you sit in that hell. At that time giving ice cream, what joy you will get? Nothing. From that state of negativity, you come to this, what is known as the Bhuloka, the Karma Bhumi. You eat an ice cream, 1 unit of joy. You eat that ice cream in Pitruloka, the joy content 1,000 times more. In Swargaloka, it's 1,000,000 times more. In Brahmaloka, it is 4.32 billion times. See, beyond a point, numbers becomes meaningless. Numbers becomes meaningless. You know, this man has $100 billion. You know, this man has $10 billion. For beyond a point, it makes it has no meaning. It has no relevance. For it is way beyond our ability even to visualize, even to understand. You follow? From that Brahmaloka to Brahmananda. Brahmananda means the experiencing of Brahman. He said, even Brahma doesn't know that. If Brahma himself doesn't know, you and me can never know. At the most we will say, okay, I understand. Just as maybe I am smiling for half a day, or maybe I am smiling for half an hour, he is smiling for 24 hours. We have no clue to the fulfillment of what that experience of fulfillment is. What is that fulfillment? The fulfillment that has come through renunciation. A fulfillment experienced through giving. A fulfillment that is experienced through service and sacrifice. That's why he says, even in the relative level, doing your obligations gives you that fulfillment. Even relatively speaking, forget about absolute. That's too much to comprehend. It's like the person who doesn't know what 10,000 rupees is, sitting and giving a discourse to him about $100 billion is futile. And he doesn't want to waste his breath with that person. So even relatively speaking, Krita Krityascha Bharata, the satisfaction of having done what ought to be done. Even relatively speaking, the fulfillment comes through. Even relatively speaking, the fulfillment is experienced through obligations. Niyatam kuru karmatvam, he says. Do your bounden duty. Word bound and duty itself is you are bound to this. You are bound to it. There is a bondage with it. How can you experience peace when you are doing bound and duty? Correct, sir. Adanaladhan we want to be free of duties, free of obligations. Even relatively speaking, where fulfillment comes from? Obligations. When you are doing your obligations, indirectly you are practicing renunciation. When you are doing your obligations, indirectly you are practicing renunciation. For the sake of doing that obligation, you are saying no to your likes and dislikes. Initially you work around indirectly. Once you reach the level of growth, you can do it. You can do it directly. The formula is the same. Right from the beginning till the end, the formula is the same. What is it? The fulfillment not out of fulfilling likes and dislikes, the fulfillment experienced by saying no to likes and dislikes. But our experience will say, the moment I say no to likes and dislikes, that very no itself is very painful, sir. Okay, கொஞ்ச நேரம் வேணா no சொல்லலாம். 24/7 you have to keep saying no or what? At least on a Sunday can we take a break? 6 days I will say no. 1 day at least I will take a break. Understand it like that. The joy coming out of discipline versus the joy coming out of indiscipline. It becomes easy. So, there is a fulfillment out of discipline, there is a joy out of indiscipline. Both of them are saying the same word, joy, happiness, but both are not experiencing the same happiness. At least this much you can understand, no? சார் இது கூட கொஞ்சம் பொருளை கஷ்டமா இருக்குதுன்னா டசன்ட் மேட்டர். அடுத்த வருஷத்துக்கு போயிடலாம். Too much to idhukku mele enna explain. Ivalu, see, there is a joy in indulgence. There is a happiness indulging. There is a happiness being selfish and self-centered. There is a happiness being selfish and self-centered. There is also a happiness. There is also a happiness through serving and sacrificing. Both of them are saying happiness, but are they experiencing the same happiness? They are not. Even relatively, it's two contrasting experiences. Even relatively, it's two contrasting experiences. The ultimate is this. As you get closer and closer to self, there is a different experience altogether. As you move away and away and away from self, there is a different experience altogether. As you get closer to the light, as you are closer to the light, there is a difference. More you move away from the light, it becomes dull and dull and dull. After a particular distance, you are enveloped in darkness, though there is light. Though there is light, you are enveloped in darkness. Because of what? Because you have moved away from the light. Moved away from the light. All that he is saying is get closer to the light. As you are getting closer and closer to the light, you experience it differently. You follow? So many ways he is trying to, so many ways he is explaining, so many ways he is trying to inspire a person to give up desiring. That's a desperate attempt. It's not just this verse. Every verse, the attempt is what? Give up desiring. Give up the ego. And the same ego will turn back and ask, if I give up the desires, what will happen to me? Now, the ego has not yet understood what it means to give up desiring. Okay, I listen to all that you are saying and I give up all the desiring. What will happen to me? It will be exactly the same. Nothing would have happened. For it has not yet understood. You follow? What is the attempt here? The desirer of objects, na kama kami. Kama kami means desirer. Who is that kama kami? Desiring objects. Desiring objects means exploring light in the darkness, trying to conquer darkness, sitting in darkness. Dark room, you take a sword and keep cutting the darkness. You keep fighting with the darkness. How much ever you fight, how much ever you cut, who will get tired? You will get tired. Darkness remains the same. That's the futile efforts of an ignorant man. All the happiness that he is searching for, he is fighting in the darkness, trying to cut darkness with the sword. In the initial stages, he feels like maybe he is conquering something, maybe he is doing something. But in the end, he will come to the realization, what? All the efforts have turned futile. What is the futile effort? Trying to fight darkness with the sword. What is the way to deal with darkness? What's the way to fight with darkness? Bring in light. Bring in light. That's always the paradox. When darkness goes away, light will come. No, sir. No. Bring in light, darkness goes. When all agitations goes, I can do tapas and attain self-realization. No. It's the other way around. What's the other way around? In the midst of your agitations only you have to do. If all the disturbances are gone, if everything is over, I'll be so peaceful so that I can do tapas. No. It's like saying, fighting darkness within the darkness. How much ever you rearrange the objects in darkness, you will still get hurt only. For leave the objects as they are, bring in light. Leave the objects as they are, simply bring in, and that light will give you the clarity to walk through that. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, the world will be full of thorns. You wear a footwear and walk, he said. Don't try to clean up the thorns. For how much ever you clean up, more keeps coming. What is the other way? Simply wear footwear and walk. Ramakrishna. But we can't be selfish, no, sir. We should clear the way for others also, no? So that not only me should suffer, others also should not. Suddenly you will become interested in others. All along you try to run over. All along you are running over the other, tramping over the other, stamping over the other, and suddenly you say, no, I should clear the thorns for others also. You will never know how the ego gains the back door, entry and has a firm grip on you. See, the nature of ego is that it has no name, it has no address, it has no GPS HL, you can't locate it, and yet it's there in the form of desires. If you can say ego is in the thumb, get rid of the thumb. It's very easy. It's worth getting rid of the thumb. Okay, where is the location so that I can go on? It has no name. It has no location. It has no form. That's why in the Puranic stories, the god of love, Kama, has no rupa. You know that, no? Who's the god of Kama? What's his name? Manmadan. He has no form. For who burnt him? Shiva burnt him. Tapas. To the man of tapas, he opens his eyes, desires get burned. To that man, it doesn't have any existence after that. For us, you have no idea as to in which form he will come and attack you. Correct? You will not know. And nameless, formless, identityless, Badri, addressless, locationless, ego has a firm grip on you. That's why you really don't know beyond a point what you are fighting. For beyond a point it looks like, what are you doing? Nothing. Nothing is there. You follow? That ego gains the back door entry. How does it gain a back door entry? It says fulfillment lies in acquisition. Fulfillment comes through Acquisition. Fulfillment comes through what you have acquired, hoard. First is acquire. Acquire and give. No. It's not that. Second step is you acquire, and what you have acquired, hoard it. Only to leave all that behind. The house is there, the children is there, the husband is there, everything is there, but who's gone? The wife is gone. Similarly, the wife is there, the house is there, relatives are there, everyone is there. Who's gone? Husband is gone. Meaningless is this. Meaningless becomes this acquisitions. A person can understand this while he is living amidst the acquisitions. Perhaps acquiring also. You follow? The fulfillment that is experienced getting closer to light. Relatively speaking, I am not talking from the absolute angle. The fulfillment that you experience when you are getting closer to light is different from you fighting darkness itself. And how much ever you fight with darkness, don't worry, you will get tired. Darkness remains same. Not only you will get tired, you will develop a different kind of a wisdom. That's where you should not open your mouth and talk. You develop a different kind of a wisdom. What is the wisdom that you develop? All this is not practical. You just have to keep. For you have been fighting with darkness. The way to fight with darkness is what? Bring in light. How to bring in light? Relatively speaking, do that which you ought to do. Bounden duty. That's why in another two more verses, he will get on to action, karma, duties. All philosophy is over. That's why very difficult to leave this and go to the Artha chapter. He starts talking about action, duty, karma, yajna, all that is going to come in another. But here he is talking about the contrasting experience. What is that contrasting experience? The fulfillment that is experienced out of service and sacrifice. The joy that is experienced out of a discipline versus joy experienced out of indiscipline. A joy experienced out of being selfish and self-centered. Being selfish and self-centered looks like works in the beginning, destruction in the end. Service and sacrifice looks destructive in the beginning. That's why we talk about service and sacrifice so that others will sacrifice. But what will you do? Hoard. What will you do? Hoard. All worldly enjoyments to him is as the waters of the river entering the ocean. When the waters of the river enter the ocean, what effect it has on the ocean? Ocean says, I don't even recognize that you have entered me. It doesn't even recognize. But the river having that individuality, the river having that ego feels, it is feeding the ocean. The ego thinks what? It is feeding the ocean. If I don't go, ocean will dry up. Ocean says, you have no choice. Wherever you are, I will pull you. You know that, no? Wherever you pour water, it will start moving in the direction of the ocean. Wherever, any point in the world you pour, it starts moving in the direction of the ocean. So there is that divine that is saying, come to me, come and lose yourself in me. Like Jesus Christ said, drink my, he said that, no, he said drink my blood. Drink my blood, no, not that. You know? Very emotional he is. Very emotional he is. They drink my, and even today they keep saying that, no, drinking the blood, no, infinite ocean of blood he must be having. So that even today people are still drinking his. What does that mean? As though the ocean is saying, come to me, lose your individuality and enjoy the vastness. Why are you stopping yourself? The ocean is inviting, and the river is saying, no, I will not come. For what will happen if I come to you? Ocean says, nothing will happen. You will enjoy the vastness. Ego says, adalla aprama. Right now, let me be the individual. This is that kami, the desire of objects. And what is the nature of that desire? What is the rupa of kama? If only you can identify that form, it will be easy to conquer that. And what is the rupa? What is the form of desire? You don't know. It's nameless. It's formless. It hides in every object. Attracting you, pulling you. What's that? That's what in the previous verses he said, there is a pull and a push. There is a pull and then there is a push. How do you conquer that? How does one conquer that? By experiencing the joy of sacrifice. By experiencing the joy of tapas. By experiencing the joy of discipline. He becomes fulfilled. Nakama kami. The desirer of objects has no choice to experience. Follow? From this what you understand? Desire is that which can be only penetrated and understood. It has no form. That's why that penetrating capacity is required. If desire has a form, it's easy. If God has a form, He is very easy, no? Only when He is hidden everywhere, you need that much penetrating capacity. Instead of developing the penetrating capacity, give it a form, it becomes that much easier. You have missed it completely. You miss it. You miss it completely. The desires. It has no rupa. And yet, it holds a grip on you. How does it hold? By telling you that happiness, fulfillment lies in acquisition, hoarding, don't part with it at all. It's very simple. The ego's formula for happiness is very simple. What is the formula for happiness of ego? First one, acquire. Second thing, hoard what you have acquired. Third thing, Don't part with the dog. Even if you part with it, part with those who are yours, so that you are not actually parting. From this pocket, it comes to this pocket. You know, sir, man, even last Thursday he was telling me. And he thinks he has achieved this status of Shankaracharya. You know, sir, all the wealth, the house, everything I have given it to my children. I have only one suitcase now. I said, why don't you even give up that? So why this suitcase? He thinks giving it to his children itself is a big sacrifice. Now what to do after that? He is asking for a certification of very sacrificial person, and to whom he gave. See, after a point you will say, taking care of the children itself I have done so much, sir. That's why children are not grateful at all, sir, for how much I have done. The humanity is at this level of existence. To them, to say, attain self-realization, God realization, what to talk? Therefore, most who don't talk, even the few who talk, they understand that talking to vacant. Swamiji always says, it's like talking to vacant air, he says. Vacant air, there is, Ramatirtha said, cry in the wilderness. It's crying in the wilderness. You cry only when someone is going to respond. Otherwise your cry has no meaning. Have you ever experienced? The child will come and cry in front of you. You ignore the child and go to the next room. The child will stop crying, follow you, come to the next room and start crying again. So, you cry, your crying has a meaning only when somebody is paying attention to. And if no one is going to pay attention to, at least God will pay attention, no sir. If you cry, no one will pay attention to, including God. If you are in bliss, you become God yourself. That is the Samudra. Becoming God by himself. Nakama, the desirer of objects cannot experience all this. And who is the desirer of objects? Only three things: acquisition, hoarding, and not parting with. All these three with the hope of it's not just acquisition, it's not just hoarding, it's not just enjoyment. All these three with the hope of happiness, with the hope of fulfillment, with the hope of happiness. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi rakshati dokran karne. All these will not come to your rescue when the appointed time comes. I can take something with me. No, you can't take anything with you. But now there is Samprapte San, very beautiful verse in the Bhajagovindam. The very first verse, he said, Samprapte, when the Kala, Sannihite Kale, when the time comes. Time for what? Time to leave. When the time to leave comes, the child desperately keeps acquiring toys, not realizing that it's going to leave all the toys behind. It cannot realize that. If it can realize that, it will not acquire. It will not ask. Are you able to follow? The child cannot understand that the desperation with which it acquires, the feverishness with which it acquires, the toys are still there in the garage. Who has moved? Child has moved. Similarly, every stage in life you keep acquiring only to leave that and move. But the ego, which doesn't have this penetrating capacity, cannot understand this. You will follow? That's all it is. You are worried about the objects going to leave you. You are worried about the beings going to leave you. What you are not understanding is you are going to leave. When you yourself is going to leave, now what right you have to ask the others to stay? What leave? Stay. When you yourself is going to leave, but you will want the others to stay. At least as long as I am there, this na irukra varaikum you be there, no? So after me, you can go to the dogs. When you yourself is going to leave, what right you have to ask the other to stay? For if the other asks you to stay, are you going to oblige and stay? No, sir, I have given that commitment. I will stay right till the end. Samprapte sannihite kale Shankaracharya says, your commitment and all is like agreement written on water. Yeah, agreements written on water. Even before you can sign, you will go. People cry because others are going to leave. Objects are going to leave. Beings are going to leave. You should cry because of what? You are going to leave. But impossible for that individual to understand that he is going to leave. That's what in the Yaksha Prashna he says, the Ascharya. What is the wonderment of life? The wonderment of life is this. You will go to a funeral in a hurry. Yeah, that's the Ascharya. You will go to a funeral in a hurry. For what? You go there, and even if 1 second if you can realize that, oh my God, one day I will also be in a box like this, not knowing who's coming, who's not coming. It becomes meaningless. All acquisitions becomes meaningless now. So, that's why, no human being is trustworthy. It's not worth loving any human being. It's not trusting any human being. Why? They leave. Correct. They leave. Just as you leave. But I don't want to leave, no sir. Your wanting or not wanting has no relevance. Yama will come and that's why he is called Kala. Kala means time. Kala means Yama also. And he comes with that. He has that rope, no? And the rope also has a name. Rope and they have given a name to that rope also. What is that rope? With what Yama drags you? Your own partner, not his. You are killed by, you are destroyed, you are killed by your own, not. But then your problem is, others are getting attached to me, sir. I don't know what to do. Don't worry about others. You are getting, others are leaving. What will I do? You are going to, it's what That's why this yoga of knowledge is very important. Verse number 11, chapter 2. He said, Katasu na katasu uscha nanushocanti panditaha. Gone? Yet to go. That's why the wise one doesn't rely on any human being. He says, it's all divine. You are extremely unwise if you rely on. It's not that others are not trustworthy. The basic nature is to leave. The basic nature is to leave. The basic nature is to change. Basic nature is to change. The basic nature is to leave. Look at yourself like that first. Don't look at others like this. That's why the knowledge should not be used on. All this knowledge that you gain, at least in relation to Vedanta, please understand. Don't use it on others. You have to use it upon your own self. You change. When you change, you have no reason to complain about others changing. You die. You have no reason to complain about the death of. Opposite of that is living life in darkness. What is the darkness? The darkness of life is this. The origin is not known. The end is not known. All your known is sandwiched between. All your known is sandwiched between two unknowns. So for all practical purposes, all that you know is not knowing at all. For the origin is not known. You remember your graduation day, you remember your wedding day, you remember the day in which your child is born, but you don't know you know nothing about your birth. Correct? You will remember the birth of, but you have no knowledge about your own birth. So the origin is not known. Carefully follow. It's unknowable. Not known. What does it mean? See, the word not known gives you a hope that one day you can understand. That's why don't use the word not known. Use the word. The origin is unknowable. The end is also unknowable. Origin is unknowable. The end is unknowable. In between, something happens and you say, I know. When that man says, I know, it's qualitatively different. The ignorant man also says, I know. The wise man also says, I know. But there is a qualitatively both are able to follow? I am trying to explain how at every level both are having contrasting experiences. His knowing comes from knowing I know the origin, I know the middle, I know the end, Arjuna. 4th chapter is going to say. I know the origin, I know the middle, I know the end. You do not know. You neither know the origin, nor the middle, nor the end. Chapter 2, he gives everything as a formula. Later on, he just keeps elaborating, explaining, making dramatic picturizations of all these concepts. Contrasting experiences. What is the contrasting experiences? The origin is unknown, the end is unknown. In the middle, there is something that makes you to say, I know. In the case of a wise man, he says, I know the origin, I know the middle, I know the end. That's what he says. I know the past, I know the present, I know the future. You neither know the past nor the present nor the future, Arjuna. You follow? Contrasting experiences at every level. A desirer of objects will not be able to understand this experience. What is that experience? Acquisition, hoarding, enjoyment with the hope of happiness, only to leave the acquisitions, the hoardings, the objects, but you carry with you what? What do you carry with? What do you carry? The hope of happiness. The hope of happiness you keep carrying. That's why desire is nothing but a hope for happiness. You follow? You leave the acquisitions behind. You leave the hoardings behind. You leave everything behind. But what you carry along with you onto the next? The hope of happiness. Just as the hope of happiness made you to acquire, hoard and not part with the previous, you will do the same thing again. Not only you will do the same thing now, you will continue to do it in the future too. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Again birth, again death. Going through the same cycle. What is the cycle? Acquisition, hoarding, not parting with. All with the hope of happiness. Only to leave that. There you turn back and understand how all your efforts are going in futile again and again. How the efforts are turning futile again and again and again, you become fulfilled. Contrastingly, it's not that you become pessimistic. Contrastingly, it's not that you will develop suicidal tendencies. Contrastingly, you understand this, you become fulfilled. That's spiritual evolution. Opposite, if you don't understand from this dimension, all this knowledge will make you more and more depressed only. More and more suicidal tendencies only will develop. It's not that. What it does to you, contrastingly, it brings about a fulfillment. That fulfillment can never be experienced by kami. The desirer of objects cannot experience this fulfillment.